Hello and welcome to the Plant Paradigm podcast, where we have inspiring conversations with amazing people from all around the world and look for ways to create a clean, green, and sustainable future for us, the planet, and all beings. I'm your host, Tom Simak, a fellow plant eater who strives to optimize every living ecosystem, passionate about looking after this beautiful floating rock we call home and all the lovely creatures that dwell among it. I hope everyone is doing well and staying safe. Just a quick update before we get into today's episode. We're officially on Twitter at Plant Paradigm, really just to join into the climate change and nutrition information wars. And to be honest, it is quite fun. And that's really all the updates I have. On today's episode, we'll be chatting with Sean Russell. Sean is an entrepreneur, media producer, and founder of SoFlo Vegans. He's a network of knowledge on how to grow and be a part of a successful community. Sean also hosts the SoFlo Vegans podcast, where they've had amazing conversations with people like Dr. Neil Bernard, Dr. Bushewitz, Earthling Ed, and Mike the Vegan. This conversation definitely had me inspired to be more community orientated, and I think you will be too. A lot of what we'll talk about centers around community, diffusing conflict, and creating a vision. With all that being said, I hope you enjoy this conversation between Sean and I, and I'll see you on the other side. Mr. Sean, welcome to the podcast. How are you going today?
Oh man, I'm fantastic. Thank you so much for inviting.
Oh, thank you. Admittedly, this is the second time we're recording it due to technical difficulties, and that's fine because it's always a pleasure talking to you and seeing you smile on the screen. So I really could have done it on purpose just to have another conversation.
We'll go with that.
We'll go with that. Sean, to start us off, because we're in a situation in the world right now where not everything's so bright, what's something you're really excited about?
I'm excited to innovate. I'm looking at what's going on in our community and figuring out ways that we can get to a new normal without having to wait for a vaccine or for some magical, genie to pop out of somewhere and say, everyone can go back to normal. We don't know when that's going to happen. Some people are saying April. Some people are saying even further than that. So I find it's up to me to be excited about finding ways we can get together, whether it's virtually, whether it's a certain way of doing it when you're in a physical space outdoor in the sun, social distance. That's what's exciting me right now.
That's beautiful. And, I'm glad that you went straight to community straight away, because a lot of what I wanted to talk about is surrounding that. Because I think now more than ever, we really need to band together and find a way to be positive and be social and be connected. But to start us off on that journey, what is your definition of community?
Well, my definition of community is people getting together around a centralized cause, or I could say a centralized cause. And that can that could be anything. That could be about baseball. That could be about politics. And in this case, it's about, spreading compassion and everything that comes along with that, specifically raising awareness for animal cruelty, that's happening out there, and your health, the environment, all those things packed into one. So that's what community is to me. And then you have, the actual carrying out of building community, which is a completely other topic, but at its core, that's what community is for me.
And since COVID has come in, it's obviously shaped and shaked a few things out. Has your definition of community changed, or has the way you approach it differed?
No, no, I would say no, because I look at community as just that, people coming together off a similar idea. Now, how you carry that out, which is I alluded to a little bit earlier, that's more the mechanism behind everything, and that's going to shift. Even pre-COVID, something might pop up, natural disaster, whatever the situation is, you get to shift and you get to adjust and carry out the mission of, bringing people together. So no, it hasn't changed. My definition hasn't changed. Just maybe the way I move has changed. But that could be with anything.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say like all the natural disasters actually come your way to Florida have probably prepared you for this. Like every time, just one after another, and it's really, I guess, giving you preparation. And I was gonna go on the back of that. Like, I've always been curious because you guys get so many, I guess, disasters that are changing a bit as the climate changes. Obviously, a natural disaster is separate from climate change. We know this. Is like, are people more aware of climate change in Florida because there's different things happening and more regularly and more, I guess, the events that are happening are more, I guess, abrupt and powerful?
I would say yes and no, and only because South Florida, maybe people don't realize it is usually at the center of most things in the US, whether it's elections, whether it's
Mm,
we're always that person in the back of the classroom that's like, oh, this guy again. So for me, that's one of the reasons I started SoFlo Vegans is because being a native South Floridian, I know what we have that people don't see. That doesn't make the headlines. And in terms of being able to be prepared for all these things that are happening with the 7 hurricane warnings we get a year. It's good in the sense that people who are on that spectrum, not on that wavelength, rather of, we do have to look out for the climate. You have to be aware of climate and protecting the environment and the biodiversity. I think there's a heightened level of that, which is what I'm tapping into with our community. But on the opposite side, you have people who are just so over it. And I made a joke not too long ago that the reason our cases are so high in South Florida compared to the rest of the world is because of just that. We're so used to this
mm,
fear mongering of tropical storm is coming. Make sure that you don't leave or you're gonna die and stuff like that. And
yeah.
you hear like I probably heard that over 30 times in my life. And at a point, it's just like, hey, if it comes, it comes. So
You've
how
been
does that
conditioned.
impact?
Yeah.
So that's why I say yes and no. Yes, before the people who are like very into it, it's like, okay, I have the experience. Let me show you what to do. Then you have like the majority, unfortunately, that's like, ugh, whatever.
Whatever. That's funny. How have you like then during this time kept close with your community? Like obviously
Mhm.
online's a big aspect of any community because, well, World Wide Web. But what strategies have you been implementing lately?
So we did one of the first things that we did was a expo, a virtual expo where we got a lot of different experts together. We did 3 days of each day had like 5 to 6 panels and just had different conversations. And so that was one of the first things that we experimented with. And the other thing is this constant communication. Actually, funny enough, not funny enough, but we took a bit of a hiatus after the expo. So I want to say we did the expo. I don't remember when we did the expo, like April. Wow. So we just dialed it down and just want to figure it out. I just felt like we're
Mm,
doing the same stuff on an old model and it didn't make sense because we were really based off of events. That's really how we've built our name here in South Florida. So now it's like, okay, now we get to beef up our digital presence. We do have the podcast and a couple of other things, but it's not really like drilled into this local community. It's more pushed out nationally in that sense.
mm,
So now it's like, okay, how do we bring that local feel into the digital space? And at the same time, get with the community to figure out how do we do in-person events safely. So we haven't gotten into the in-person event model yet, but we are experimenting with a few things. But as far as a digital thing, we're doing an event, depending on when you hear this, a live event. It's going to be similar to our expo, but we're going to be inviting people on, putting snippets of videos that we haven't put out yet, doing some games, answering questions, just making a fun, live, interactive experience that we do monthly, which is the event is called SoFlo Vegans Unite, and we've done that event in the past at different centers and what have you. So we're taking that feel, bringing it back monthly. Set your calendar. So those are two ways that we're looking to innovate during these times.
And obviously, because of the hiatus that you mentioned earlier, and because of the difficulty of, I guess, person to person experiences, which is fully feeling based, emotion based, touch, sense, all those things, have you felt like during this, because obviously you're a lot more probably connected to your community than I am, um, because you're just actively pursuing it. Have you felt like more people have been quite sad or disconnected in the
Mm.
past few months?
The tricky thing about that is I've noticed that most people don't share their disconnection. They double down on the digital connection side of things. So you'll see more posting on social media. You'll see more burnout on social media. So the people just disappear. So I would say that it's been a mixed bag in sense that you will see people start to communicate more online. I mean, speaking for myself personally, I've been more active on social media, in the comments, one-on-one
Mm,
messaging, just trying to build those um, personal touch points with everybody. So that's something that I didn't really do in the past. I was more focused on like the logistics of everything. So it's like take a break, not take a break, but take a pause and make connections.
mm.
And I see that people doing that organically, and I also just see people disappear and maybe pop up once in a while. Oh, I took a break from Facebook. I'm back now. What did I miss?
The Karens of the internet. Um, so I was going to say with community as well, what's so fascinating is with these blue zones that you always hear about, they're eating majority plants. Like, yes, they're staying active, and you see 95-year-old Okinawans riding bikes, and you're like, how is that possible? But a really big pillar for them is also community. It's how they're connected to one another, how they're always sharing a meal, how they're always like being slow and having events and things like that. Have you got like an ideal, like in your mind's eye, of what a community should look like?
um, I mean, as far as what a community should look like, I would say just people having compassion and empathy for people, how they show up, engagement, a call to arms if people are struggling, if there's a business or a nonprofit that needs your support, urgently, we can rally together in moments and support that individual. Um, you know, Information pumped out, support groups, mentorships, resources that are sourced by the community. That to me, and just a groundswell of activity and people coming together so you can go to that next step in the formation of a community where you can have influence on your city. You can create financial stability for your organization or for your community so you can invest in property, you can invest in a space where your members can come together and do community projects, build themselves up. Those are that's how I see community being built. And that's what we're working towards in our community.
It literally sounds like a library to me. Like how like the governments build these libraries, they have like that board, they post up all like the events that are happening, they have all the free resources. I think what I was imagining in my mind's eye when you were saying that is like that on like a larger scale where it's actually, I feel like when it's organized by the government or the council, there's a certain disconnect. But
Mm,
if like the people are then like, hey, John down the street made this building for us, and John talks to Bob and Bob talks to Peter, and then it creates this sort of, I guess, excuse to go support one another. And I think now, although there is a certain level of disconnect, I think, we see with all that BLM protests and a lot of people are banding together at the same time. Um, but on the back of that as well, when we have this ideal, like this is how we can create an amazing community together, what hurdles do you think we have to jump to be able to get there? Like what, and that could be ideologies because there's certain mental frameworks that we maybe need to change or adapt to be able to fit those models, but it also could be other things. What do you think we need to address to get to that?
I think on an individual level, we get to respect people as they are. I know in my community and my circle is mixed with people from all walks of life, not even just ethnicity and race, but just political ideologies. That to me is very important because what I see, I don't want to get too much into the political side of things, but what I see is, in it, I, s- I see a breakdown in communication when people merge communities, if that makes sense. And what I say by that is whatever side of the coin you fall on when it comes to politics, you're part of a community. I feel like tribalism is a big part of the divide that we see in in the world. And because when you start attacking that, or when you start to criticize, let me say criticize is a better word, that you're essentially criticizing that person, because if you hold it true to your identity, it now becomes a part of you. So I don't want my community to become that. I don't want people to start looking at anyone who's not part of the community or is going against the community as a
Mm.
threat, because that to me is a pollution on your character, or rather on my character. I'm being very mindful to focus on myself and not other people, in terms of, because that's essentially what I'm saying not not to do.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh, but yeah, just respect people. Just have respect for people. Be open. Like for me, I'm open to being wrong all the time. I'm always listening because I can take that and add it and grow from that experience. So I would say for the community, I would love people to be open for people, not to be exclusionary. If you're not vegan, that's fine. We're here for you. Have any questions? You never know what seeds you're planting when you're making those connections with people.
for sure. And I think um, what you mentioned before, especially with political ideologies, that can get very heated very quickly. Have you had much experience in a community situation where you've had to potentially diffuse a situation?
Oh, 100%. I've been running communities since I was a sophomore in high school. So this is, I've
Teach
been
us your ways, Sean. Teach us your ways.
so like right now I'm trying to think about how old I am. Right now I'm 38 years old. So I've been, running multiple communities. And I don't say that to say I've been running communities, but I've been saying that to say I've seen a lot of different people. I've done it in music, I've done it in wrestling, anime and manga, education. And right now I'm handling the community in veganism. Hello. I'm like, what's my community now? um, and one of the things that I've seen is when people, even within a community, you start to see cliques, and this goes back to the tribe mentality. It's okay. Who do I align with? It's high school. Which table am I going to sit at? Where's my clique?
Mm.
And so when that starts to happen, you start seeing people jockeying for position within the community. And these are good challenges to have as a community, because that's a good sign of growth. It's like people looking for what's next. But as a person that runs a community, that's something that you get to control. Because for me, that's a sign of a lack of structure. Because I have a background in education, and in this hiatus period, I had an epiphany that what do I want? I want a safe space, in the sense that I want to be able to go somewhere and know that I'm going to be taken care of, whether it's through creating an environment where I can connect with people, where you have the resources that I need. You're creating fun events, it's fun excursions. Hey, we're going to be going
Mm.
these sort of
Yeah.
places. Like, I would love a community that's like, obviously post COVID, where it's like, hey, on this such and such date, 30 of us are going to be catching a limo bus to Disney, and we're going to be, stopping at all the vegan places there. I'd be like, whoa, that's awesome. I want to be a part of that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that's what I forget what your question was, but that's what I want to see. And yeah, that's what I want to see. What was your
Yeah.
question? I'm curious. I kind of like, I've been talking for a while.
I kind of don't want to even say, because I think the question just formulates a thought, and then where that train takes you is completely up to the train. It's up to the train driver, which is you. But I think I asked how we deal with criticism within a community, like because we were talking about political agendas and ideologies and things like that. But
Okay, so structure is my
yeah.
answer.
But piggybacking off what you were saying, I think it's really interesting, and I think, you know, in a way, like I've gotten to that part where it's not alpha, holy crap, I need to be stronger than this guy. I need to be better. I need to attract the most beautiful female, and these certain, I guess, things that we think we need to accomplish. Do you think in a community, and I find this really interesting because you mentioned tribalism, you're kind of shooting for this, okay, everybody love everybody, which is freaking phenomenal. Like, and that's great. But do you think in a community sense, there's space for like, this guy's trying to be alpha? Or do you think you need to kind of shun that down and be like, no, bro, you're like down here with everyone else?
Once again, it's come as you are. If that's your personality, I'm not going to try to change you. But what I will do is make sure there's that structure, the ground rules, that you're not abusing the rules. And that's why you have rules in the first place. There's a compact between everyone, there's an understanding. So that way you have that safe space created. And also it prevents people taking advantage of human nature. So you may have
Mm.
someone that's looking to be that alpha and has that Eddie Haskell super dated reference. Rest in peace to the actor, but where they know how to butter up the community organizer and they know how to get them
Yeah.
to their side, and then now they're playing politics of, yeah, well, this person shouldn't probably have this position because I heard. So if you have the rules and you hold people to it, then you don't leave room for that. But then you still have people who can exercise their personality, because that's what makes things interesting. Like I personally love when people are different, out of the box, ruffle feathers, but not in the sense where it's destructive, where they're breaking that unwritten rule that's out there in terms of human decency. You know,
Yeah.
that's where it draws the line. But if someone's just being an a-hole and people don't like that and they're not doing anything personally to you, that to me kind of makes me smirk a little bit, because it shows that I don't know. Why do I like that? I like that because it makes things interesting. You know, it because I thought about this actually today. If everybody liked everything the same, or everyone was the same religion, or they were the same political side of the coin, or whatever, I feel life would be boring. And that's just how I feel. But once again, as long as that's under the umbrella of people following rules and whatnot and not doing harms to other, it's like I like to mix it up a little bit, you know?
Yeah, totally. And you don't have to take it that big. It's also like where you are going with your thing. It's like this person might be this side of the political coin, this person might be the other. But on the other side of thing, this one is pancakes, this one's waffles. And it's like it doesn't create like friction. You know, if I'm pro pancakes, I don't go and, diss waffles. It's just, these two things make a great picture when they're together. And I think that's a nice way to think of it. And even though it might be your opinion, I think it's a really nice thing to, I guess, toss around in your mind, because it gives you an opportunity to be like, no, everyone's pretty cool. Yeah, like you're pretty cool and you're pretty cool. You've got a hat and you've got a not hat. I don't know.
Beanie.
Beanie. And then in the way, because you've got, like you mentioned before, heaps of experience leading a community. Do you find that there's a lot of pressure coming with that?
Internal pressure. I think most people don't understand what goes behind running a community, because unless they're on the inside, like on the internal team, they just see the end result of that. And running a community is a completely different animal than, let's say, hosting a podcast or running a website. Hosting a community is a combination of those things, plus managing different personalities, keeping people happy, being consistent with whatever you're doing. And when you have a cause, there's some high stakes involved. Especially if you're running a community that's filling a void, and if you're not around, that void's just going to be remain unfilled.
Mm.
So yes, there's pressure on that, but that really is driven by that individual that's running the community.
That's really fascinating. I thought you were going to go with the other direction of external pressures with this person. It comes down to expectation. This person expecting you to do X, Y, and Z to maintain this community. And, people have different expectation of what a leader should look like or what a host should be like. And I find it fascinating how you go full internal, and that just shows really good growth. And I'm sure over the years that's also changed with how you feel that pressure. And I'm sure at the beginning there was a lot of
Yeah.
imposter syndrome, um, like all things. But you mentioned like having a community is a whole different monster of a thing, a huge different topic. How would you then go and start a community? What do you think are some things that you've learned where, like, I would like going back, this is how I would change how I grew my community?
I wouldn't change anything. I feel that missteps just show you the right way to go for what you're doing. And like, I'm not gonna, the whole
Mm,
Thomas Edison quote, the 99 whatever ways to make a light bulb or whatever. But so I wouldn't change anything. But as far as if I were to say build a new community, that'd probably be
mm,
a better way to phrase it, because then I can take what I've learned in the past.
yeah.
I feel the research part of it is important because it allows you to build your network. So when you do launch, you know the people to speak to, you know what the needs of the community actually are. That's what I did when I started SoFlo. I spent I launched SoFlo in 2014, and for 2 years I just went to festivals, events, figured out what I was going to do. I didn't launch until 2016, 2017. So for me, that was important because it allowed us to get started. And the thing about SoFlo is at the same time, it was really the first time I did like in-person events, because I did a few events. I did a few like live events here or there, but nothing like every month come together. We're going to like do, hey, introduce yourself. Here's some potlucks, this, that, and the other. Never done anything like that before. So it was a learning process, a lot of trial and error, seeing what worked. And that was another year of doing that consistently. And then from there it was like, okay, like let's see what comes. People start reaching out to you, it starts to grow. I wasn't grounded in terms of what it could look like in terms of the community, because everything was new. So we took
Mm,
we made a left here and then went around the building and went down this river and then kind of
yeah.
moved away from where I wanted to go. But funny enough, that river just bent and went right back to where we were supposed to be. So instead of A to Z, we went like to J, and now we're back to Z. But along that way, we created a structure that's unique to us. So, um, long story, I would say it's important for me to just have an idea, have a vision of what I want, and be open to how it shows up, because you don't know, if that was a necessary road you were supposed to take in order to get to where you want to go.
Yeah, let's talk about vision for a second since you finished with that. It's obviously important for anything, even I think personally, like you should have a vision of what you want to be or the things you want to portray, because that helps you find the direction. It's like the whole saying, find your why and your how and what will find itself.
Mm,
Um, as a leader in a community, how did you find your vision for SoFlo Vegans? What was your process?
that's a good question. So I found my vision for SoFlo Vegans through the research of what I was doing. Like, I just have an internal drive to create communities. Like, I look at that as my gift, and I don't feel right unless I'm in the process of doing that. And there's a lot of other things that come along with that, as well as being easy to connect to people and things of that nature. And also exercise, my other gifts of like creating media and what have you. So in terms of my vision, I noticed that there wasn't anything like this in South Florida. There were communities that were similar, but not what I was doing. And the other part of it is having been in so many different industries or verticals within the South Florida community, I saw a common thread. And that common thread was people, there's not a lot of homegrown talent that stays in South Florida. And that's not to be confused with like a small town where it's like, I can't wait to leave this black backwards place. It's we're a community, we're a transient community where you have a lot of the brightest people coming from other places, but it may not be their only home. It may be, oh, I'm going to try this experiment out, or hey, this is our summer spot. You're going to have snowbirds. It's a big thing down here. People leaving for several months out of the year, and it's like tourism is like a little bit dead. So I wanted to create a global hotspot for veganism in South Florida. Put a showcase on what's happening in Miami, Broward. These are different counties. It's a tri-county area in Palm Beach. And showcase these people, these places, create resources, bring people together. So that's the vision that I have in my head, where I can see a list on PETA or another place, Expedia, let's just say, top 10 vegan cities in the country, and always know in the top 5, Miami, Fort Lauderdale, West Palm Beach, somewhere in South Florida is going to be represented. You know, that's what I envision happening. I envision people, hey, we're going to have the first vegan awards. 3 contenders, somewhere in South Florida, New York, and Los Angeles. You know, little things like this that I can see happen time and time again is what I see happening. And the vision doesn't stop there. It's not just about South Florida. It's about creating a model, a sustainable model on how to build a community that can be used by anybody. You know, being able to say, okay, I will consult with you with your community for LGBTQ or your community for the disabled. And you can do the same thing that we're doing here with SoFlo Vegans and create a system where you can support those nonprofit organizations, where you could have events for people in your community to come together and build homes or do whatever it is that's important to you. That's the other part too. So yes, there's the South Florida focus, but also it's like, wait, once we're able to get this down, we can support other communities, create a network, and do some amazing things.
That's awesome. I lost my train of thought midway through. I was so sucked into your vision, which is awesome. And it shows that you kind of work on it. And obviously you have to when you're doing something. And a lot of the times, especially when you first started SoFlo, it would have been like all work, no reward. And you would have had just your vision to get you through that. And on the back of that, I think what's really cool about community, and this could kind of speak to SoFlo, but not really in a good way. When I see community and when I see like the online aspects of what community is, I think it's really phenomenal. Like the other day I was on Facebook and I saw a video of people with pony fetishes, and they dress up as ponies and they have their tail and like they can't see, they just have these 2 eye holes and a horse mask, and they literally got a carriage in between their arms and someone's whipping them from the back and they're trying to jump over hurdles. This was like their thing that I saw on Facebook. And at first I didn't know what to think, but then I also thought, what a really interesting community. Like community can be anything. And in my mind, I was like, imagine being this person who, and no judgment, has a pony fetish and wants to dress up as a pony. And then all of a sudden you find another person. And I thought in my mind, and even though this was a 3-minute video, I was thinking about it for like 20 minutes. In my mind, I was like, this person must feel so relieved to have found someone else who has really got the same interest as them. And that could be phenomenal for them. That could change their world. That could make them happy again. And that could do whatever things. But I saw that on Facebook and I'm like, where can we find community like that, regardless of our interests? Like, where do you find community?
Ooh, I find community just like, yeah, on the online spaces, Meetup. I find it on Facebook. The groups are, probably my number one place to go
Can
to.
you teach us how you use those things? Like I've used meetup.com, I've used Facebook groups. Can you run us through the process of how you would find a group for those who maybe haven't used the online world, whether they're scared or they don't
Mhm.
know how to? Can you run us through how you did that in a way that worked?
Yeah, it starts with the organization. Having a home base for your organization is important. I use a website, and that way, if I have a community set up on Meetup and Facebook, I can point people to one source, and they can decide where they want to interact with, let's say, an event.
Mm,
So, for example, for a concrete example, I just launched an event for Thursday, and it's going to be streamed to Facebook and YouTube.
mm,
And then people can interact through the message boards. I'll be pulling in questions, maybe have a guest or two. Now, I start by putting it on my website because on all those platforms, I'm going to send them back to my website for more information because on my website, I have a membership portal where you can sign up and get other information that's not anywhere else. And that's the goal because Facebook can go the way of MySpace. All these different things can
mm,
just disappear. And if everything, your whole life is on those platforms, or not even go away, just be dead, then so will your community. And that's just what happens similar to like Meetup. Meetup is not as big as it used to be, but it's still a community. People still go on Meetup. People are being recommended to Meetup. So I make sure I keep that active. But so it's like a circuit. I serve on my website. I post it on Meetup. More so for the actual in-person events, I'll put it on Eventbrite, put it on this platform, have my little checklist, make sure it's everywhere. Then on my homepage, I can put links to all those different places. Because not everybody uses Facebook. So that's how I use technology for community and bringing people together. And that's how I'd
awesome.
recommend, you use that. And obviously, do research, watch YouTube videos. There's other little things, hacks that you can do, but for the most part, that's the general idea.
You've obviously grown a lot in this community, and growing a community means networking with some amazing people, and that could be from doctors to just normal everyday people that have amazing things to say. What are some things you've learnt through them or through your own experiences that has improved your quality of life?
One thing pops into my head. It was an interview I did with Dr. H.E.A.L, who runs Climate Healers, and he told me about the acronym HEAL, and that stands for health, the environment, animals, and love. And when he broke that down for me, like that's why he's vegan, you know, to me it was like, whoa, first of all, I love the acronym.
Mm,
And to me, I realized that my reason for being vegan is the love. It's the compassion. It's being compassionate for others, but more importantly for yourself, loving yourself. Because if you're not your own biggest fan, forget about it. People feel that. You get to be passionate about what you're creating, what you're doing for other people. And so that for me comes first. And that also looks like self-care. Are you getting enough sleep? Are you taking care of yourself, making sure you're getting your vitamin D and your all these other things? Because if you're sick, guess what you can't do? You can't help other people.
mm.
And that falls to the consistency part of it. So yes, I'm doing it for the animals. I'm doing it for the environment. I'm doing it for my health. I'm doing it as a representative, a vocal representative of the vegan movement. I get to be grounded in my why. So I would say that right there is something that I bring up as many times as possible, especially in my podcast. If anyone out there listens to the podcast, you'll probably have heard me bring that acronym up. Well, you know what I'm saying,
Yeah.
up like at least 6 or 5 times.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true what you were saying. Like you can't fill other people's buckets if your bucket's empty. And I think that applies in every aspect of life, whether that's financial. How are you going to donate money if you don't got money? How
Mhm.
can you give your partner love if you don't have love? It's like it you can't help other people if you can't help yourself. And that could be through health. And that ties back to why a lot of people are vegan, so they can be healthy. And I don't know if you listen to Dr. Greger's podcast, and he always starts with, we want to climb mountains, we want to watch our grandchildren grow up, but you can't do that if you don't have your health. And he starts every podcast like that. I'm like, it's so true. And sometimes it's a good reminder to be grateful for being healthy, but also like, come on, like, do you really need um, to sit on the sofa all day and just eat chips? Like, sure, you might need that sometimes, but doing that on a consistent level is going to hurt you. And I think heal means so many different things. And I think you did mention that the first time we had a conversation. I'm like, man, you can heal. You can heal everything. You can apply it to your mind, like heal your mind. It's like, what is not eating animal products, and what is giving love to other people doing to your mind? And then what is it doing to your body? And then what is it doing to the community? And I really like that acronym. Yeah, I think I'm going to remember it this time. And then obviously in terms of like the body and like the food portion, I don't talk about this enough, but what is something, because obviously being COVID right now, a lot of people are cooking a lot or potentially getting takeout sometimes, supporting some places. What's something where you cook it, some sort of food dish that fills your mind, body, and soul?
Wow. Okay. I would say so there is this dish that I make that I typically in my life have something that I can eat every single day.
Mm.
And I recently, it's a rice dish that I use Hodo tofu. I don't know if you've ever had their tofu before or
No,
if they have it in
we have so
Australia.
different brands. It's crazy.
Well, it's organic. It's really good tofu. It's a veggie burger, and I put that with rice, spinach, which I know I don't eat too much. I try not to eat too much. I've been
Mm.
hearing all the things about could potentially give you kidney stones if you eat too much or what have you. I think eat it right. I think I do the right amount, and I put some condiment on it, some organic condiment on it, and I'm good to go. So maybe that may be more of just like that effect of the mind, that comfort of I'm a creature of habit, so I like to just do the same things every day if possible. So I would say that's one thing, and I'm getting back into blending and making smoothies. I just got a Vitamix that I get to take out the box and to start having my green juices in the morning again, having my lemon, having my celery um, water. All these different things I've learned from all these experts. I get to.
Um, I'm so surprised you mentioned having the same meal every day, since you just had Dr. Bushowitz on your show, and he's like 30 to 40 plants a week, 30 to 40 plants a week, 30 to 40 plants a week. And have you, because I recently read his book Fiber Fueled like last month, have you like upped your plant intake since having him on the show?
Well, I mean, with him during that conversation, I mentioned a chili that I make. I haven't made the
Right.
chili in a while because I've been moving around and I just haven't had the feel for it. But in that conversation, he made me realize that 30 to 40 variety, the
It
way I
includes
pictured it
beans?
before he broke it, huh?
Does it include beans and that kind of stuff?
And that's what I didn't realize.
Oh.
It could be the spices you put into a chili. If you put 5 different spices, that counts. If you use the different vegetables. So it's not like the way I pictured it was like a bowl full of,
The ultimate salad. Yeah.
tomatoes and things like, I'm not about that. You know what I mean? So for him just to say, yeah, the variety doesn't matter how you make it. Just have a variety, and then and I think he even said it could be the same thing, but just make sure you have that variety of different foods, just however you decide to do it. So yeah, that's something. I'm glad you said that. I think that was you told me that for a reason. I'm gonna integrate that chili back into so I at least
Do
get
it.
those. But I get my sources from other places too. I supplement. The smoothies work really well because I know I've put a lot of different greens in there. Try not to put too many fruits in there, because of this, things that you're not supposed to really have fruits and veggies and food
Really?
combo and
I've
all that
never
stuff.
heard that.
The
I'm gonna have to look into that,
the
because that is
deeper you
definitely what
go
I do.
down the deeper you go down the rabbit hole of health, like I've sat through so many lectures from Dr. Clapper, from all these different places, and yeah, there's like rules. There's like Mogwai
It's so
rules to
frustrating.
eating that if you're in good health, you're probably just good not going down that. I mean, if you eat decently, you know what I mean? If you're not like eating the standard American diet every single day,
Mm,
you probably can just give yourself a little bit of leeway. But if you're sick, then yeah, there's some rules that you should be looking at to improve your health.
goddamn. God. And we have mentioned SoFlo Vegans a few times. Can you give us a rundown of what exactly you guys do, what you are? And you did talk a bit more about your vision, but I guess what you're kind of planning in this 2021 phase.
Yeah, I mean, just a quick background. We are an organization based here in South Florida. That's what the SoFlo stands for. And we just put a spotlight on all the businesses, people, nonprofit organizations, anything that's happening in our location, which is a pretty wide location, probably the size of some states, where we're plugged in. You know, people send information to us. We're digging, lifting up stones, finding out what's going on. My background is in video production, actually digital media production. So I do podcasts, videos, websites, all that stuff. So it's just like, okay, cool. Now let me go ahead and create this content. You know, I don't have to rely on, which is good and bad, but I don't have to rely on a team of like, people doing it and waiting on deadlines. It's like I can knock it out in a night. So that's what we do. We paint a spotlight on what's going on in South Florida. And for 2020, we're shifting because a lot of that was also live events. We'll work with festivals behind the scenes, help them get sponsorships, find guests, all that stuff. So now it's like, okay, how do we do that in this new time? Like I mentioned, we did the expo, tried that out. We have the monthly events that are sort of like the expo, but more interactive. And and right now, our big thing for 2020, 2021 is figuring out how to create a in-person event that's going to be safe, because
Mm,
ultimately businesses are suffering. You know, there's so many restrictions now on what you can or can't do. I want to find a way that we can put a spotlight, maybe like on an area, and have people throughout the day go and do a takeout order, like do flash mobs of like, hey, on such and such day, we're going to support this, this, this. And because we're speaking to our community and not just throwing the messaging out to the ether,
mm.
people are going to be more receptive. Like, yeah, I love those people. Hey, everybody's going to do that. It's going to be so cool for them. Let's go out and try those foods. So before the day actually happens, I'll go to those businesses and do short little vignettes with them and put it up on social media. So they're getting the promotion on our website, on our social media channels, and then everyone's coming out to support them with their dollars. That's one of the models. And then there's other things too. People have large open spaces that are outdoors. We're looking into how can we activate those spots and be responsible for people who can be spaced out and still talk and connect with each other. So that one's a little bit more that's a little trickier,
Mm.
because you can't do once you create the opportunity. People made it come together and start raving and stuff like that or what have you. And then it's kind of like, I didn't mean for this to happen. But so we're moving a little slower on that one. But to say everybody come out to this location and support these two businesses, I think that's safe.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's really important. I mean, I was talking to my good friend, I interviewed him for the podcast, Jansen Andre. He runs a really popular cafe in Melbourne called the Vegan Shack. And he said, look, COVID's very different because the government's trying to intertwine with your business and regulations, a lot more things than ever before. And it's sometimes he talks about how he went into work one day and made $3. And
Mhm.
I'm just like, man, that is, you feel so powerless. So I guess what you're doing is so amazing. And I think in a way, to not dive really into deep, but the people who own these businesses, that these small businesses that are doing amazing things and supporting them, they will be touched like forever. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So that this one thing could get them through this whole pandemic, maybe, even if it's just on inspiration. But
And
um,
what I just want to add to that,
mm,
and that also comes from the trial and error,
mm,
which I wouldn't have given up, because when I first started, I had that intention, but then the reality of like, okay, how am I going to pay my bills? It
yeah,
takes
true.
time to do these sort of things. So I went back and forth, and that was sort of like the river bend sort of situation of like, okay, let's charge the businesses, let's try to do sponsorships, let's do like did all these things. Some worked, some didn't work. So now we're at a point where it's like, okay, I can't be doing this expecting to become financially
Mm.
sustainable. I get to build the audience. I get to create the value. I get to put in my time and my money to make this work, because I know at the end, we're going to create a platform for businesses, whether it's through our news or whether it's through a paid promotion, which we do have. That's part of the model. But our goal is we're not excluding anybody. Like if the community is supporting you, like we have a voting feature on our website right now in our directory. So people can vote for the businesses, the people that inspire them. And based on that, every month when we do our news releases and what have you, we can say our community they're passionate about these things, and if you're a business that's not in this top list or not on the first page of our directory, here's how you get on the first page. Promote SoFlo Vegans. Here's some badges. So now we're building the communities. The businesses are coming together. The people know they can go to SoFlo. They want to find out if a new business opened, or if there's like a sanctuary that's looking for rescues, or whatever the situation is. We can become that hub for the community. So that's the shift that we made, and where we're on right now. And that's what I'm excited. Going to, I think, our first question, that's what I'm excited about.
Yeah, I mean, what I was actually going to touch on while we're talking about businesses, because you've been in a lot better and consistent contact with these small businesses and big businesses that are offering, especially the food portion of things. Not asking you to be a psychic, just an opinion, but do you think some of them are going to come out of this no longer being able to run?
Yes, I think we're seeing that now. There are businesses that weren't prepared for this, like a lot of individuals who weren't prepared for this. And, through the grace of, a stimulus check or the unemployment that was coming through, I think they signed an executive order, but they're struggling. Businesses are struggling, and it's not a lost cause. And that goes back to the void. I don't like, a lot of what we're doing is influenced by conversations I'm having with business owners. I see this as a need, something that these businesses need desperately, and they can't come out of pocket to cover costs. They can't, they have their audience, but there's also a lot of noise out there. Every business is becoming savvy when it comes to posting on social. So it's like, okay, it's cool, but maybe here's some things that our community is looking for. Maybe not just say we have a new burger. Maybe have a special event. Maybe say come in, do something different that makes you stand out. So that's the other thing that we provide for businesses as well, is we provide some best practices that we're not just making up out of thin air, but we look at what our community is doing, because our community also includes the businesses. We look at
Mm.
what they're doing. I ask them what's working, so I can then pass that along to other people. So that's important for me.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess coming on the tail end side of this episode, before we find out where we can find you, is there any bit of knowledge that you'd like to leave the community with, regardless of the topic?
Um, I would say, if you're going to, we're talking about community here. Well, this could apply to anybody, because there's two sides of it. There's running a community and there's being a part of a community. And the goals are the same. Everyone plays a role, because you could run a community with no one, and is it really a community? Or you could be a part of a community that's not being structured or run. Is that really a community? Because I feel like there needs to be direction, or else you're just an aimless group of people passionate about something. I think that's more of like a message board. I feel community for me has a sense of purpose and urgency. Like, we're doing this, yes, to connect and have a good time, but also there's stakes involved. There's high stakes involved, and for the vegan community, the stakes couldn't be any higher. It's the dissolution of your mind and and your sanity through lack of connection. That's why it's important for us to get together virtually or in person. It's the environment. Like, if we don't have an earth to live on, there are no animals.
Mm.
It's the animals. It's that piece of conscious, that cognitive dissonance of, okay, I'm eating this burger, but I'm not really hurting an animal. It's that faceless hunk of flesh and meat that you're putting in your mouth that was a living being. And being able to see that and then connect on how do I pass this compassion to my fellow human being is, I feel, the other part of the puzzle as well for these sort of communities.
That's amazing. No, I totally agree. And cognitive dissonance is so hard to tackle, but and it's so hard because it's like you don't know what you don't know, or you don't know what you're not letting yourself know. And that's where it comes down to the bury your head in the sand type of situation. And it's so, I guess in times it can be frustrating, but we can't say that we haven't been there. And it's irregardless of whether it's about veganism or whether it's about political agendas. Like, do you support Bernie Sanders? Why? What about his policies? Like, you don't just go by what the memes on TikTok say. You look into the things, and not everything's got its own bury in the sand scenario. But addressing cognitive dissonance, I think, is very important, and that just comes down to awareness. And when you're aware, you can be better in your community, because then you actually listen and you understand and you can communicate, because you've learned different things and you have different experiences, which is really powerful. And just, I feel really inspired from this to connect in the community. I'm like, oh crap, I can't even go outdoors right now, but I want to give someone a hug. Where can we find you guys?
You can find us at SoFloVegans.com, and from there you'll find everything that we do. And social media, all of our social media is SoFlo Vegans. We just got our YouTube, small victories, yay!
Yes.
So you can find us at SoFlo Vegans on YouTube as well, and then just check out what we're doing. Like, honestly, today was a perfect day for us to have this conversation, because I've been promoting this day as the relaunch of SoFlo Vegans for a while. And what I mean by that is, from here on out, I'm committed, and we'll see if I'm committed if I continue to do it. That's how you know if you're committed.
We're going to keep on your ass, because by the time it comes out, we're going to see if he followed through.
And that's the other part of it too. You know, I put it out there, so like I close my escape hatch. So then it's like, but anyways, yeah. So that's what today is. So today's a significant day in the history of SoFlo Vegans, is because it's like, what's next? This is what's next. And I appreciate you having me on to talk about our organization and talk about community and the vegan movement, because this is not it's not like anything else I've done. This is my life. You know, I'm all in.
You're all in. Hell yeah, bro. I really appreciate you jumping on. And of course, there is the podcast as well. Don't forget to mention that. I'll leave everything linked in the show notes so you guys can check it out. Support Sean. He's really doing some amazing things, and he does pump out a lot of content. Obviously, from this conversation, you can tell that he is altruistic. He does things for other people, and that is so awesome to hear and see. And to be able to associate yourself with people like that, I think, is a really good learning opportunity, both for yourself and so you could learn how to be that person for other people. Because, you know, community is something that we need pre-COVID, post-COVID, next year, the year after that year, like we always need it. And I think when you surround yourself with people that have that as a value and respect that, and you find ways to learn different ways to approach community, I think that's a really beautiful thing to be able to devote yourself to and to learn about and to experience. But Sean, thank you so much for jumping on. It's been an absolute pleasure, and there's so many gems in here, and I hope you have an amazing night, my friend.
Same to you, Tom. Thank you so much for having me, and I appreciate speaking with you.
Hi there. Welcome to the end of the episode. I hope you enjoyed the ride and got some value out of our conversation. Please let either Sean or myself know how this episode landed for you by visiting our Instagram or Facebook, or however you like to get around. I'll leave the links to where you can find Sean in the show notes. Thank you once again, Sean, for jumping on and having a conversation. It was an absolute pleasure speaking to you. As always, you can find us on Instagram and TikTok at plant.paradigm or Twitter at plantparadigm. If you're on YouTube, please like, comment, and subscribe. And the best way you can support the show is by leaving a review on iTunes or clicking that follow button on Spotify or Apple, or I don't know how the rest of them really work, or sharing this episode with a friend if you want to share the value that we provide. On the next episode, we'll be chatting with Alex Glover, a social media influencer, fellow podcaster, altruist, and plant eater. We're going to be diving deep into so much surrounding health and wellness, consciousness, and sustainability. I'll see you next time. Stay happy, eat plants. Peace.